Hello. Thank you for joining me today to talk a little bit about physician communication. Effective physician communication is very important for health systems. Why? Let's take, for example, retained surgical objects. In our system, this issue is a very important one, and we decided about a month ago to create a short computer-based learning module. This information was sent out from our corporate headquarters to our physicians. Unfortunately, in doing so, they bypassed middle management, and because their list of physicians was not complete, a number of physicians were left out. This was not an ideal situation, and so it caused our physician leadership to think about what is the best way to communicate with physicians. We came up with a standard work for communicating with our medical community. So we're going to navigate through this document together briefly in order to understand the nuances of effective communication with physicians. So let's start with the sender. The sender should be a Mountain States corporate or facility department. This process is not meant to be used by Integrated Solutions Health Network or Mountain States Medical Group. It's very important that physicians receive messages from what I would call a trusted agent. A trusted agent is somebody that the physician knows and trusts, and in this way, it's more likely that they're going to take time to really read the message and understand what the message is about. Therefore, we assign an owner to the message. This could be your Med Staff Services Coordinator, your Chief of Staff, or your CMO. By going through one of these primary owners, it builds the credibility of those individuals in the minds of the frontline physician staff. This also helps for there to be fewer unnecessary messages. By channeling all messages through this primary owner, some unnecessary messages may be able to be filtered out. Our second step is to consider the audience. Not every message needs to go to every medical staff member. Typical audiences would include a particular department of physicians, or perhaps just the active medical staff of a hospital, or maybe even the entire medical community. It's very important to remember that anytime you send a message out to a group of physicians, you have what we would call a second audience. A second audience would include certainly nursing and the remaining physicians, because messages are shared, but also even the community. You want to craft your message understanding that this second audience exists. Another important feature of determining and focusing on your audience is that it will help you to only send messages to those who really need it. This will help to avoid what I call message fatigue, which results from physicians getting more messages that they don't need to get, and as a result, they start to tune out all messages. Our third step is to determine our priority level. There's high, medium, and low. An example of a high priority message would include the recent incidents of contaminated steroid vials. When this news broke, our system began to immediately inform our physicians about the developing events. Lucky for us, we did not have any contaminated vials in our system. By prioritizing messages, we also help physicians to prioritize. Physicians will know that if a message is marked high priority, they should go ahead and read that immediately, even if it is in the midst of a busy clinic. If it's low priority, they can wait and take time to open that when they have some free time. The end result is that we respect the physician's time, and by respecting the physician's time, we respect the physician, and this builds trust. The fourth step is to select the channel of communication. There are three basic channels that we can use: written, oral, and face-to-face. You need to remember that written communication conveys minimal context, while face-to-face, like now by video, conveys the most context. For difficult messages, you want to use the messaging channel that will allow for the most context. Lastly, as a general rule of thumb, if you're going to use email, try and limit the number of messages in an email to 3 and no more than 3 emails per week from the system to the physicians. Lastly, the master contact list is maintained by your MedStaff service coordinators. Let's go on to our 5th step. So now we fine-tune our message. If the message has been delivered to the MedStaff Services office or the CMO, then it may only need to be reviewed, packaged up, and sent out. If you're going to create the message, you should ask yourself some of these basic questions to try and keep the message very concise. And keep in mind 3 aspects of a message. The first is what we call logos, which is the actual factual information that is in the message. The second is what we call pathos, and that is the emotional content of the message. This can have a very big impact on how the message is received. The third is ethos. Ethos has to do with the sender. The physician receiving the message will read that message in the context of who it is that is sending it. Lastly, if you have a particularly large or lengthy message, consider pulling in marketing for help in your local facility. One final point. In communicating with physicians, it's important to recognize that their cultural context is often different than a non-medical cultural context. This is why it is important for physician leaders to review messages going out to physicians, because we understand this cultural context. Our 6th step is to actually distribute the communication. There are some suggested subject lines here. The important thing here is that if we use these subject lines consistently, then physicians will learn which messages are really important to read right then, and again, which messages are low priority and can be read when time allows. The final step of sending a message is to try and confirm that the target audience received it. If the message is sent by email, then the best way to do that is to touch base with some contacts within the medical community to make sure that they receive the message. Thank you for spending some time today talking about physician communication. Effective physician communication is very important for efficient and safe operations at Mountain States Health Alliance. Thank you.